Let me give you a brief history of Fox Chase Farm. So, Fox Chase Farm is very old. It is over 200 years old. The present farm is about 112 acres and has had many owners, and the size has changed slightly over the years. Now, it was originally deeded to William Stanley in 1682 by William Penn. William Penn is our founder of the state of Pennsylvania, hence Penn. Now, Pennsylvania, what does that stand for? That stands for Penn's Woods. Penn's as in William Penn. So the farm is then deeded to William Stanley in 1682, and it was called Mount Stanley. And on maps, it was referred to as Mount Stanley. Now, Gwynn's Mill was built there along the Pennypack Creek. So the mill was a grist mill, which means it processed different grains, including wheat and corn. So this back then was a very agricultural area, and they provided a lot of grains, and there needed to be a mill so the grains can be processed. So it eventually was then deeded to a Friends Society and operated as a dairy farm. Now, the cows were milked and vegetables were grown for the table. The Lorimore family then purchased the land from the Friends Society, and Horace Lorimore's son lived in the manor house. And the manor house is that building right there in 1928. Then, in 1939, Harold Butler purchased the estate from the Lorimores and hired Irwin Glancy as a caretaker that same year. The Butlers kept Herefords and Black Angus cattle on the farm, so he kept a lot of those beef cows that we talked about. But he also kept other animals, including pigs, sheep, and goat and horses. Now, eventually, the manor house dates back to the early 1800s, so it's a very old building. Mr. Glancy worked on the farm as a caretaker from 1939 to 1982. He planted fields and raised stock and raised livestock. He lived there with his wife in a small farmhouse. The farmhouse is the oldest building on the farm. Now, there's a lot of different buildings on the farm. One of Glancy's first projects was to build a large barn. Now, that is what we call the pig barn. He built it in 1940, but in the early 2000s and 2001, the building had to be gutted and modernized and reconstructed so that it could be safer for people and students. Now, some of the stone walls were still there, and you can still see them if you stop by. But Butler passed away in 1968 at the age of 78. Now, the plans were to build 884 garden type apartments on the farm, but that stopped by zoning restrictions. In 1980, the funds from the federal government and the city of Philadelphia, Abington Township, and Montgomery County, the property was then, the entire 112 acres were then purchased and were given to the park system so that we, as the school district of Philadelphia, could then run the facility. It was originally preserved to keep the Pennypack Creek from the damage of urban development. So back when we were talking about riparian buffers, this was essentially a giant riparian buffer. This was made to prevent the Pennypack Creek from being damaged. Now, this is a huge important part for the Greenbelt. Greenbelt is a very natural area in a very urban development. So this saves a lot of the natural areas so we can have a lot of trees and a lot of grass and many different natural areas for people to enjoy. The facility now is run and operated by the city of Philadelphia in the education. So we are The school district of Philadelphia is the one who runs the property and is used for teaching the property. So, what you see around here, this is all Philadelphia. And we hope that you get to learn a lot of the different types of farming that happens still in Philadelphia, in a city that still does farming.